President Lee Jae-myung is poised to hold his first summit with U.S. President Donald Trump at the White House at 12:15 p.m. Monday local time or 1:15 a.m. Tuesday Korea Standard Time. And our correspondents are in D.C. to cover the occasion live. And President Lee kicked off his three-day U.S. visit by meeting with the Korean community there and expressed his gratitude to Koreans abroad for their dedication that has contributed to strengthening the South Korea-U.S. alliance for prosperity and peace. The National Assembly passed another revision to the Commercial Act aimed at better protecting minority shareholders after the main opposition People Power Party's filibuster came to an end. President Lee Jae-myung will start day 2 in Washington with a summit with his U.S. counterpart, Donald Trump. He'll be greeted by Trump at the White House in about 5 hours from now. Let's go over to our correspondent, Jong-un, who's standing in front of the White House. Jong-min, what can we expect today?
Hello, Tommy. As you said, the summit will begin just hours from now at the White House you see right behind me, which will be the highlight of President Lee's week-long trip. According to the White House, at noon local time, U.S. President Donald Trump will greet President Lee Jae-myung and hold a bilateral meeting at the Oval Office for about half an hour. Then the leaders will have lunch behind closed doors. We do not expect a joint press conference. It'll be their first in-person meeting.
All right, Jong-min, let's go into details now. What sort of agenda can we expect then?
So, Tommy, key bilateral issues are likely to be covered, ranging from the allies' recent framework trade deal to defense spending and security. Take a look at what President Lee had to say on his way to Washington.
중요한 것은 대한민국도 하나의 주권 국가이고 주권 국가에서 우리 주권자들, 우리 국민들이 기대하는 바를 충족시키지는 못할지라 최소한 실망하게 해드리지는 않아야 된다라는 그런 책임감을 가지고 있습니다.
When it comes to modernizing the alliance, as Washington focuses more on countering China, Lee said it is difficult to agree on the strategic flexibility of the U.S. forces in Korea, as demanded by Washington. Instead, he says discussions for a future-oriented strategy are needed for U.S. versus Korea. Eyes are also on whether there will be talks on the North Korean nuclear issue and a potential revision to a bilateral nuclear energy pact, and to what extent.
Right, Jong-min. So we do know summit is taking place in about a couple of hours, but after the summit, what's on President Lee's schedule for the rest of the day and also tomorrow?
So after the summit with President Trump, President Lee is scheduled to meet with business leaders from both countries. Later, he will deliver a speech at the Center for Strategic and International Studies think tank, outlining South Korea's foreign policy and his vision for the South Korea-U.S. alliance. On his final day, Lee will travel to Philadelphia to tour the Hanwha Philly shipyard, recently acquired by Korea's Hanwha Group. We hear that senior U.S. officials will accompany him. After the tour, he will conclude his U.S. trip and return home early on Thursday. Back to you, Tammy.
All right, Jong-min, do keep us posted. That was our Jong-min live from D.C. Ahead of summit talks with Trump, President Lee met with the Korean community in the U.S. as his first schedule there. Our top office correspondent, Song Yoo-jin, has the details.
Stepping off South Korea's Air Force One jet, President Lee Jae-myung began his 3-day visit to the U.S. on Sunday. Just like in Japan, his first stop was with the Korean community, which he calls the bridge between the two countries. Some 150 Korean residents and Korean Americans joined the first couple for dinner, representing the more than 2.6 million, the fifth largest Asian population in the country.
부단한 노력과 헌신으로 한국인의 위상을 높이고 번영과 평화의 한미 동맹을 한층 굳건히 만드는 데 열정적으로 기여해 오신 동포 여러분들께 이 자리를 빌려서 다시 한번 존경과 감사의 마음을 표합니다.
For us compatriots in the U.S., Korea remains our homeland, never to be forgotten. I hope the President will foster open communication and close cooperation between overseas Koreans, the government, and the people back home.
Among those attending were politicians, business leaders, journalists, and artists, including Andy Kim, the first Korean American senator.
And as a son of humble Korean immigrants who came here 50 years ago, it is such an honor to be able to stand here and welcome the President and the First Lady. Welcome to the United States. Welcome to your strongest partner and ally in the world.
President Lee concluded by vowing to listen to the voices of overseas Koreans and expand the support they need.
제2동포 여러분들의 오랜 과제인 복수 국적 연령 하향 문제를 해결하는 일에도 힘을 쏟겠습니다. 대한민국 주권자로서 권한 행사를 하고 책임과 역할을 다하는데 부족함이 없도록 투표할 수 있는 장소나 장치도 제도도 잘 만들도록 하겠습니다.
With that, the South Korean leader wrapped up day one of his U.S. trip. Now, the big day will be Monday when President Lee holds his first face-to-face meeting with President Trump at the White House. With trade, security, and economic cooperation expected to top the agenda, all eyes are on the summit's outcome, widely seen as an early test of the administration's so-called pragmatic diplomacy, putting national interest first. 송유진, Arirang News, Washington, D.C.
And the foreign press are highlighting what they expect to be key issues on the table, from the future role of United States forces Korea to how Seoul will deliver on its investment package in return for lower tariffs. Our Moon Hae-dan tells us more.
The upcoming summit is being watched closely both at home and abroad, with major U.S. media outlets framing it as a test of the strength and direction of the Korea-U.S. alliance. The New York Times notes that both leaders share unusual parallels, surviving assassination attempts and showing interest in talks with North Korea's Kim Jong-un. But it also stresses key differences, particularly over China and Taiwan. It reports that Washington wants U.S. forces in Korea to play a larger role in countering China, while Seoul worries such strategic flexibility could weaken defenses against the North and drag it into a conflict with Taiwan. The paper also highlights unease in South Korea, where polls show growing support for nuclear self-reliance as Seoul faces pressure to boost defense spending and deliver on a $350 billion investment pledge in exchange for lower tariffs. NBC News says the summit may detail that investment fund, which Trump has tied to shipbuilding. Seoul has already set aside $150 billion for a Korea-U.S. shipbuilding initiative called MASGA, Make American Shipbuilding Great Again. But NBC stresses the bigger issue could be the alliance itself, including the role of U.S. troops. The Wall Street Journal lists tariffs, defense spending, and U.S. forces Korea as top agenda items, adding that MASGA may appeal politically to Trump. It underscores America's urgency in strengthening its navy to counter China, where Korean shipbuilders could prove vital. Reuters calls the summit a pivotal test for President Lee, with Trump expected to push for higher defense spending as both sides address North Korea's nuclear program. Bloomberg predicts the meeting will be the toughest challenge of Lee's presidency, with stakes spanning investment, trade, defense, and North Korea. Moon Hae-dan, Arirang News.
With the Korean Peninsula and North Korea issues likely to be included in the summit, all eyes are on whether the South Korean and American leaders will make progress on dialogue with Pyongyang, something that was initiated by both Seoul and Washington during Trump's first term. Our Oh Soo-young has this report.
Since the Lee Jae-myung administration took office in early June, it has moved quickly to set out steps to build peace with North Korea. Exactly 1 week after the president's inauguration, Seoul decided to dismantle loudspeakers blasting anti-North Korea broadcasts across the border, a type of psychological warfare that had long angered Pyongyang. In his Liberation Day address, President Lee made 3 pledges: respect for the North regime, no push for unification by subjugating the North, and no hostile acts.
Again, these are not new wordings. It's from the 1992 Inter-Korean Accord about reconciliation. So he's reusing a 30 years old language in order to make sure that he is not going around the Constitution, seeing that unification is a goal. But reading between the lines, he is actually stating that he will not pursue unification proactively within his term, looking at how he is saying that we should not focus on faraway future. We have to do something gradual and smaller to the extent that you focus on risk management.
Seoul also pledged to revive the 2018 pact to reduce military tension along the border. Officials, including the Unification Minister Jong-un, have pushed to revive inter-Korean hotlines and even suggested North Korea join the APEC leaders meeting in South Korea this October. Pyongyang's response has been dismissive.
So I think North Korea's response to Lee administration's reconciliatory approach is not being open for discussion or dialogue, but rather closing the door for most of it, but trying to condition the Lee administration so that they will work on scaling down the US-South Korea drills going forward, which is in North Korea's benefit.
At the same time, the North did not rule out talks with the US. Kim Yo-jong, the powerful sister of Kim Jong-un, suggested that Washington accept the regime's status as a nuclear weapon state for any engagement to take place. Washington has, quote, noted with interest Kim Yo-jong's remarks, while maintaining its firm stance on deterrence and denuclearization. Acknowledging that inter-Korean dialogue might take longer to materialize, Seoul has expressed full support for a possible Trump-Kim dialogue, while proposing a three-stage model of denuclearization, freezing, then reducing before dismantling the North's nuclear program. Quite notably, Foreign Minister Choi Han has clarified that inter-Korean diplomacy will be pursued in parallel with US-North Korea talks. Thus, he said, Seoul's trust-building approach will remain anchored within the South Korea-US alliance and their goal of North Korea's denuclearization. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
In the meantime, in the north, the regime claims to have successfully test-fired new air defense missiles. Our Kim Do-yeon has this report.
North Korea says it has successfully tested two new anti-air missile systems, releasing photos of a missile intercepting a cruise missile target under the watch of leader Kim Jong-un. State media on Sunday claimed that new systems are highly effective against drones and cruise missiles. One of the missiles is believed to be an advanced version of Russia's Tor system using a cold launch technology where the engine ignites mid-air. While the North tested a similar missile in March, this is the first time it has shown a successful cruise missile interception, a significant step in its air defense capabilities. The test firing of a defensive weapon is a calculated move by Pyongyang, coming directly in response to the large-scale Ulji Freedom Shield military drills between Seoul and Washington. It also sends a message as President Lee Jae-myung travels to Japan and the U.S., where bolstering trilateral security cooperation against the North is a key topic. And these provocations aren't just in the air. Tensions are also flaring on the ground. The UN command has confirmed that on August 19th, South Korean troops fired warning shots after about 30 North Korean soldiers crossed the military demarcation line. According to the command, while the North gave prior notice about construction work in the area, the North Koreans crossed the MDL and ignored multiple warning broadcasts before the shots were fired. The incident contradicts claims from Pyongyang, which call the warning shots a dangerous provocation. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
The Lee Jae-myung administration's delegation to China has conveyed hopes for a mature partnership with Beijing while reaffirming its alliance with Washington. The team, led by former National Assembly Speaker Park Byung-seok, landed in China this past Sunday on the 33rd anniversary of diplomatic relations and met with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi. Discussions touched upon the importance of advancing bilateral ties into a strategic cooperative partnership for mutual gains. The South Korean delegation also shared Seoul's intentions to respond sternly to any provocation by Pyongyang, while at the same time pursue cross-border peace and dialogue and urged China's support in ensuring the latter. Park also delivered a personal letter from President Lee Jae-myung to his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping. The recent cycle of the ruling party introducing contentious bills and the opposition staging filibusters to block them came to an end on Monday morning. With the Democratic Party-led National Assembly passing a revision to the Commercial Act. Our political correspondent Shin-ha-young reports.
Out of 182 members present, with 180 in favor and 2 abstentions, I hereby declare that the amendment to the Commercial Act has been passed.
With the passage of the revision to the Commercial Act amid the main opposition's boycott on Monday, the filibuster battle between the rival parties over the contentious bills has come to an end for now. The amendment requires large listed companies with assets exceeding 2 trillion Korean won or around $1.4 billion to adopt a cumulative voting system. It also expands separate nominations for audit committee members from 1 to at least 2. The passage follows the end of a 24-hour filibuster launched by the main opposition People Power Party after the ruling Democratic Party passed a motion to close debate. The DP welcomed the result, saying it moves the country closer to the KOSPI 5000 era, while the PPP criticized it, saying business leaders had warned that the greatest risk is companies quietly leaving South Korea.
Focusing on responsible, shareholder-centered management can turn distrust and cynicism in the capital market into trust.
The Yellow Envelope Bill and the revision of the Commercial Act are economic rebellion bills, as they could discourage investment, drive firms overseas, cut youth employment, weaken growth, and seriously damage the national economy.
Earlier on Sunday, the DP unilaterally passed a pro-labor Yellow Envelope Bill. Labor groups welcomed it as a major win for workers who had previously been excluded from collective action. On the other hand, business groups issued a joint statement expressing concern, arguing that it was unclear and could lead to costly legal disputes. The presidential office welcomed the passage of the labor bill broadening workers' rights and said that the government will gather opinions from both the labor and business sectors to ensure the law is properly implemented, noting there is a 6-month preparation period. With the PPP planning a constitutional challenge to the passage of the contentious bills, political tensions are expected to remain high. 신하영, Arirang News.
The Israeli military on Sunday hit Yemen's capital Sanaa in retaliation for missiles launched by Houthi forces towards Israel. Now, Houthi health officials say the strikes killed at least 6 people and wounded scores more. Our Lee Seung-ja has more.
Israeli airstrikes hit Yemen's capital Sanaa on Sunday in retaliation for missiles launched by Houthi forces toward Israel. According to the Houthi-run health ministry, the strikes killed 6 people and wounded 86, marking one of the deadliest incidents in the ongoing exchanges between the two sides. According to the Israeli military, the operation targeted a military compound that included the presidential palace, as well as 2 power plants and a fuel storage site. The strikes came just 2 days after the Houthis claimed responsibility for firing a missile at Israel, part of what the group described as a campaign to pressure Israel to end its siege and military operations in Gaza. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu responded with a warning that any attacks against Israel would be met with a fierce response.
Whoever attacks us, we attack them. Whoever plans to attack us, we attack them. I believe the entire region is learning about the strength and determination of the state of Israel.
However, Houthis claim that their air defenses managed to intercept most of Israel's aircraft and force them to retreat, although that claim has not been independently verified. The strikes are the latest escalation in more than a year of direct clashes between Israel and the Houthis. The Houthis said Friday that they fired a ballistic missile toward Israel, calling it part of their support for Palestinians in Gaza. On Sunday, an Israeli Air Force official said the missile likely carried multiple submunitions designed to detonate on impact. Lee Seung-ja, Arirang News.
From timeless classics to bold experiments, one festival is setting the tone for the summer. The Nunc Music Festival returns with unique collaborations, including world-famous French novelist Bernard Werber taking the stage. Our Park Hyo-bin tells us more.
When story meets music, the stage itself becomes a novel. The 8th Nunc Music Festival is taking place across South Korea until September 5th. The festival's name, Nunc, Latin for here and now, reflects its spirit as a city summer festival that brings together classical music and other art forms. Led by Sejong soloists, an ensemble with over 700 performances in 120 cities worldwide, the festival pushes the boundaries of classical music with bold experiments and collaborations. This year's theme, Companion Pieces, pairs works from different eras and styles to create something new. Highlights include world-class violinists Gil Sham and Adel Anthony, renowned guitarist Gigi's debut recital, and a performance by rising cellist Yeo Yun-soo. But the program drawing the most attention features best-selling French author Bernard Verveer. He takes the stage himself, narrating The Time of Chimeras, a world premiere based on his latest novel, performed together with Sejong soloists. The story imagines a dystopian future after a Third World War, where hybrid beings, part human, part animal, rise to dominate the Earth. Verveer, who calls South Korea his second home, shared his thoughts on the collaboration.
When literature and classical music come together, we can reach a wider audience than books alone. Music can move people more deeply than words, because it is a universal language. My first rehearsal with Sejong soloists was breathtaking. Composer Kim Taek-soo's music held such complexity and power.
Often called South Korea's most beloved foreign author, he also spoke of his special affection for the country.
South Korea is very precious to me. It's a nation of great resilience and energy. What amazes me most is the country's pursuit of perfection, not only in technology, but also in the arts.
When imagination on the page turns into sound on stage, the Nunc Music Festival once again captivates audiences with a stage beyond boundaries here and now. Park Hoo-bin, Arirang News.
Time now to take a look at what's been happening in the world of sports. For that, we have our sports editor, Paul Nates, here in the studio. Hello, Paul.
Hello there.
So, Paul, why don't we start with football? A South Korean national team squad was announced this afternoon ahead of the upcoming friendlies. Tell us more.
Yes, that's right, against the USA in New Jersey and then Mexico in Nashville in early September. Now, the big news is that there is a first inclusion for Jens Kastrup, a 22-year-old midfielder who was born in Germany to a South Korean mother. He recently changed his national team allegiance to Korea and is one of 26 players in the squad. There are returns for goalkeeper Kim Sung-kyu, left-back Lee Myung-jae, midfielder Bae Jun-ho and forward Jong Sang-bin. With a place in the World Cup secured, Hong Myung-bo will now be running the rule over his players to decide who makes it into the squad next summer.
Exciting stuff. Staying with football, a first MLS for Heung-min.
Yeah, first goal, and what a goal it was as well. Son on Saturday sent in a superb free kick with just 6 minutes on the clock. It gave LAFC a 1-0 lead away to FC Dallas, but the match ended in a 1-1 draw, despite LAFC dominating the game. Elsewhere, Kim Min-jae on Saturday got an assist to tee up Harry Kane in a 6-0 Bayern Munich win over RB Leipzig in the Bundesliga. And in the English Championship on Saturday, Paek Sung-ho got his first goal of the season, helping Birmingham City earn a 1-0 win over Oxford United.
All right, so moving on to baseball, the KBO record we were all expecting, right?
Absolutely, yes. 10 million fans now.
Wow.
That's the second year in a row that they've been able to do that. The milestone was reached on Saturday, and another could soon follow. The overall regular season record was set last year at nearly 10.9 million, and that was reached after 671 games. This year, it was reached after 587 games. The KBO has already set a new sellout record, currently at 278. The regular season is set to end on September the 30th. The LG Twins sit top, 5.5 games ahead of the Hanwha Eagles.
Paul, sticking with baseball, a season-best hitting streak for Jong-un of the San Francisco Giants. Tell us more.
Yes, 10 games which ended on Thursday. This meant he was just one hit away from his career-best 11-game hitting streak from last year. Hit number 10 came in the Giants' 8-4 loss to the San Diego Padres on Thursday local time, batting 1 for 3 with a walk. During his 10-game run, he was hitting at 12 for 36. So far this month, he has had at least one hit in 18 of 20 games and has a .320 batting average. The Giants are next in action away to the Chicago Cubs on Tuesday local time.
All right, thanks, Paul, for that roundup. As always, we shall see you next Monday again.
That's right, yeah, thank you.
Today, it has been raining mainly in the western parts of the country. As the rain clouds gradually move eastward, it will rain across the country tomorrow. Looking at the expected precipitation, more than 100 millimeters of rain is expected in Incheon and in northern and eastern parts of Gyeonggi-do province. And more than 80 millimeters of rain is expected in inland areas of Gangwon-do, Chungcheong-do, and the northwestern parts of Jeollabuk-do provinces. Meanwhile, heatwave warnings have now been issued in most parts of the country. With the high humidity, it will feel even hotter than the actual readings. Tomorrow morning will start hot at 27 degrees Celsius in Busan and 28 degrees in Jeju. Highs will move up to 30 degrees in Daejeon and Gwangju, Daegu and Gyeongju, 34 degrees. There's rain forecast for the Seoul metropolitan area and the western parts of Gangwon-do province on Friday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is all we have for you at this hour, but we will be back later at 12:45 a.m. Korea Standard Time for our special coverage of the Iraq-U.S. summit. Until then, goodbye.